Hello, good evening. Welcome to the show. My name is Ama Pratt. This is The Couch. It is the Thursday edition of the show, so it's the Hard Talk, current affairs edition of the show. It's been another very eventful week in terms of the news, in terms of the issues, and we, as always, are very happy to come your way, with our opinions, our truthful analysis, of the issues, and seeking to understand and make meaning of all the major headlines of this week. I will go over them, the ones that we have selected for conversation. 1, Alan calls for Christian leader. 2, we will not hand over power to the NDC. That's something that Brian Champon has been credited to have said. And then Bohu Wolome's alleged marriage saga. So clearly a very, very, very topical week as always. My guests are seated ready to do action. But before we get into the conversation, let's watch these clips and come back. Stay with us.
Look at what will benefit our people. Let's look at what will benefit our people. I have been selected partly because I'm a Muslim. So I'm selected because I'm one of you. I'm not representing myself, I'm representing all of us. So please support. Let us make a difference in Ghana in our generation. Thank you very much for that.
In all humility, I want to present to you as one of the people who will be contesting today this country. Amen. As Christians, when you go down on your knees to pray, I want you to pray for God to stretch and anoint the one after his own heart. Amen. It is not about political parties. It is about the one who is after God's own heart. I want you to pray that the Lord will touch your heart and select a leader who will transform this nation. Amen. Our preacher has informed us that resurrection should lead to transformation. Amen.
Welcome back. So, all the political parties have reacted to both videos. I'd like to read this briefly before, I introduce my guest. It says, the opposition National Democratic Congress has joined the New Patriotic Party to condemn pronouncements by independent presidential aspirant Alan Chamantin that Ghanaians must elect a Christian leader. While addressing congregants of the Church of Pentecost, Dr. Watt Assembly over the weekend, Mr. Chamantin said, as a predominantly Christian nation, as Christians, it is our responsibility that we elect a Christian leader who is also a Christ-like leader. We want a leader who has a vision to bring hope to the hopeless, but we also want a leader who will be a servant leader to serve the people and not to lord over them. We also want a leader who has integrity. These were the characteristics of our Lord Jesus, who today is risen. But Director for the MPP, Richard Ahiagba, says such comments does not augur well for national cohesion. He argues that the statement by the former Trade Minister is divisive and contrary to the religious inclusivity in Ghanaian politics. We must unite to reject this nation-wrecking comment. Such dangerous rhetoric must not be tolerated, and we must denounce it whenever it rears its ugly head. Let us remember that we are one people. We do not have a Christian Ghana or a Muslim Ghana, just one united Ghana. Together, we have been working towards building a better future for our nation in this Fourth Republic, and we must keep it that way, he stressed. On his part, the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP, Mustafa Gandhi, said the statement could undermine the peace being enjoyed in the country. He accused both the independent candidates and the 2024 flag bearer of the MPP of resorting to same statements because they lack ideas. So apart from having failed at the government, this is what they have resorted to. That means we must be condemning all of them. We must be condemning Dr. Baumia for doing it earlier, and we must condemn Alan Kojo Tremantin. They are short of ideas, and now they are playing a game that at the end of the day will destroy the peace of our country. Right, so that's our first issue. Let me introduce my guests. I have been joined in the studio by lawyer Apia Dankwa, D. Kojo Yankson, and Mr. Kwame Owusudan. So gentlemen, you are welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
I'm a lawyer, Kwame Owusudan, so address me properly.
I'm sorry, a lawyer, Kwame Owusudan, so Esquire.
But I'm making me feel...
I know. Kojo, don't worry, it's the two of us.
Citizen. You know, Esquire, you are an Esquire.
Citizen, Kojo Yankson.
If you are an Esquire, you are slightly below a knight and above a gentleman.
In Ghana.
In the world, globally. So Esquire is important.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. You earned it, Kwame. You earned it.
I'm Mr. Apiano.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. So let's go straight to the first issue. And I'll start with you, lawyer. Because this is right up your alley. Your candidate is, he's receiving some small fire.
Very surprising in any way. So
deservedly so?
No, very surprising. So let me wish you a good evening. And wish D. Kojo Yankson. I think that title is supersedes the Esquire one. Because it's D.
Please don't get me into trouble, I beg you.
D. Kojo Yankson. No trouble. And Kwame is my brother. My fellow, I like to call him fellow. There's a brotherhood, a sense of brotherhood from those of us who are privileged to have been in Katanga. Maybe one day we'll sing the anthem for you. All others. and to wish Ghanaians a very good evening. Anyway, so Ghana has been suffering from a leadership crisis. We all know that. We have been suffering from a leadership crisis because over the years we've unfortunately had the kind of leadership that tends to lord over others. We've tended to have a leadership that always puts to the fore their parochial interests as an interest of all others. We've had leadership that lacks integrity, leadership that does not want to serve. And we've had leadership that is more positional than actually granting, as in sacrificing themselves for the good of the whole. And some of us have been crying for proper leadership. And I think if you read history, a huge majority of people would agree that one of the best adverts for leadership we've ever had was the leadership of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You understand? As in his impact on the world, on history, is phenomenal. To the extent that we have BC, even the calendar, has been named or has been determined by when he appeared in this world. Also, the Church of Pentecost, one of the fastest growing churches in Ghana, over the years have advanced a certain idea of depossessing the nation. You understand? And then so when you hear the Pentecostals talk about possessing the nation, then serious efforts being had by them in terms of making sure that there are people in the Pentecostal church take the commanding heights of business and also of politics. It's because of their firm belief in the kind of leadership they believe people who claim to believe in the ethos and values of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ should possess. And so if a huge majority of people believe that one of the best adverts for leadership that transforms, is the leadership that Christ gave, then I find it very surprising and very hypocritical, especially from some of the people I've heard speak, when they condemn Alan Chemantin for saying that Ghana needs a Christ-like leader. You understand? Because his full statement was, Ghana needs a leader who is not only a Christian, but is also Christ-like. You understand? I find it very surprising and very worrying. Then is for me what it tells me that is it the case that Ghanaians don't want proper leadership? Because what did Christ himself say a leader ought to do? You read the book of Matthew 20, verse 26, when Christ said that he who wants to lead must first learn to serve. So one of the cardinal principles, values of any leader worth emulating, or any kind of leadership that can bring about transformation, is a leadership that recognizes that really the call to leadership is a call to serve your people. You see in Ghana, we use the word service here, as in without really appreciating what it means. Sometimes I heard another was of Mafo said he served Ghana, and then so sorry that I have to use him as an example. But when I put the microscope on, let's say Anna was of Mafo, when I put the microscope on, let's say His Excellency Nanado, about 98% of the leaders we've had, they have not served Ghana. They take away from Ghana. Today when I came here, I told Tijani that I came here not because of this topic. I came because of the scholarship issue. When you have an issue where we create a system and recognize that, listen, in this kind of society we are creating, if we want to create a society where we have equal opportunity for all, because that's one of the core duties of leadership, then we must have a scholarship that will bring everybody up. And then the so-called leaders take those monies themselves. That's what you have when you don't have a Christ-like leadership. Because it's not about just using the word Christian or Christ-like. It's about going to what Christ stood for. Or when you say Christ-like, because Christ said, do unto others what you would that others will do unto you. So if really you are somebody who believes in Christ-like leadership, then you won't have a situation where the scholarship issue, but almost all the issues we are bedeviled with, where people come into government and within 2 months they take everything and they give nothing to other people. What really they don't serve you. So for me, when Alan said what he said, he didn't tell them vote for me because I'm a Christian. He didn't say that, because we heard Dr. Bamia. What Dr. Bamia said was very personal. I'm one of you directly, and we want to help our people. So vote for me so I'll help our people. But when Alan said, and then I'm happy he played there, he was talking about the values that constitute the Christ-like leadership, servant leadership.
You don't find a problem, that seems we are using religion, we're kind of playing to the religious gallery in an attempt to win votes. You don't find a problem with that in a secular state? No,
but it's a state that is 72% Christian. It's a state that is about 99% religious. You have about 72 Christians, you have about 17 Muslim, and we have our laws. Really, you take our whole criminal law. I'm glad Esquire is here. Criminal law is divided into two: crime ala insi, crime ala prohibita. Crime ala prohibita usually constitutes about less than 1% of crimes. The entire crime ala insi, our whole criminal code, is premised on religion. It's premised on morality. Yes, and that's why beyond the act, you also need to prove the negative, what's it called, state of mind. You understand? So we are running a system. We talk about values and we talk about principles. What are they premised upon? They are premised on our religious values. So, except that in Ghana, and it's a problem. And when it comes to the Ghana, the child issue,
right.
See, when we take religion in this country, we take it on the face value. We will look at the, okay, so I have to go to church, I have to give my tithe. But what makes you, let's say, a Christian? What makes you a Christian is not the fact that you go to church. What makes you a Christian is how you adhere to the values of the religion you say you are a part of. And that's why I'm saying that when Alan, and that's why Alan just didn't leave it at that vote for me or vote for, and he didn't even say that. He didn't say vote for me because I'm a Christian. When he said vote for a Christian who is Christ-like, he then took his time to explain the values that he thinks a Christian leadership or a Christ-like leadership will bring. He talked about servant leadership. And that's why I'm quoting some of the things Jesus Christ himself quoted. I wish that we don't want a leader that has integrity. Because you read Galatians 5:22, where they talk about the fruit of the Spirit. And the premise is that anybody who claims to be a Christian must exhibit those fruits. Compassion, integrity, long-suffering, empathy, all those values. Can you claim to, because Christ said that, listen, he said this, so it's not everybody that says I'm a Christian who is a Christian. He said, by their fruits, you will know them. So when I come to you and say I'm a Christian, I do exhibit certain characteristics. The fact I'm saying a Christian doesn't make me a Christian. So for me, the reason I say I'm surprised is because the focus of that statement is not about the nominal Christian. It's about the values that a Christ-like leadership will exude. And there are values that we need. We need a leader that has integrity. Or you don't think we don't need a leader that has integrity? So that when people are criticizing that statement, at this instance, when I heard Anaba say what he said, then he's a hypocrite. But I've said here that the party he belongs to, for all the things they've exhibited, when they talk about the spirit of the party, what are they talking about? Ordinarily, it would have meant the values of their party. But the values they've shown over the past 12 years is values that are, or a spirit that is familiar. Right. Familiar spirit, not a spirit based on any principle. Because if somebody is saying that we should vote for a Christ-like leadership, and that what that means, that we should vote for a leader that has integrity. Right. We should vote for a leader that has compassion. Right. We should vote for a leader that can transform. Right. That is the kind of leadership we need.
So for you, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact,
it's not about there's be something wrong, but it's a statement that I would like to applaud and want to stand on all forces with, not because it is Alan Chemanti making that statement, but it's something that I believe firmly in. I believe firmly in the fact that Ghana needs a leader that has integrity. Ghana needs a leader that has compassion. Ghana needs a leader that understands that to lead really is to serve. Ghana needs a leader whose focus, whose purpose, whose aim, like Christ was, is to bring about transformation, not about self-seeking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, this is one of those rare occasions, because I don't think it happens often. It's one of those rare occasions when I don't entirely agree with my brother. It doesn't happen often, I've got to say. Yeah. And I have to even qualify it by saying I don't entirely agree, because there are parts of what you said that I do agree with. Yeah. For example, I completely agree that Ghana needs a transformational leader. I completely agree that Ghana needs a leader with integrity. I completely agree that Ghana needs a leader with compassion. Yeah, compassion,
empathy. Yeah.
Yes, empathy. I completely agree with those things. So even my disagreement is not total. Maybe the point of departure is that I don't think that those qualities have anything to do with being a Christian at all.
Okay.
Maybe that would be the point of departure. Okay. We have the words of Alan Chemanti here. That's why I even picked up the sheet. So this is a quotation, right? Direct quote. He says, as a predominantly Christian nation. And that is factual, 70-something percent. Like yeah. Then he adds, as Christians, because he's addressing a group of Christians. Yeah. It is our responsibility that we elect a Christian leader. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
But then he goes on, who is also a Christ-like leader. So yeah, the idea of being Christian is that you ought to be Christ-like. That's not the reality. It's only the idea.
Yeah.
It's not the reality. In Ghana, Christians are not Christ-like. The Christians he was addressing at the Church of Pentecost, they only like to think they are Christ-like, but they are not. There is a heavy character of hypocrisy that settles upon our Christianity in this country, so that you have to travel a very long way to find a Ghanaian Christian who is Christ-like. It shows in our choice of leaders. So far, we've only ever elected Christians to the office of president. But look at where we are as a nation. Look at our most recent leader, President Akufo-Addo, who wants to use our money to build a cathedral. Is that Christ-like? Is that what Jesus would do? In fact, if you are looking for a Christ-like leader, then we have to disqualify the whole of Parliament. We shouldn't put anybody from Parliament on any ticket in this country if we want Christ-like leaders. In fact, you should advise your flag bearer, Alan, not to pick anybody from Parliament as a running mate. Because I mean, is that what Jesus would do? We are passing laws to criminalize people because we don't like the kind of sex they have. Is that what Jesus would do? In fact, who are the people Jesus drew closer to him when he was on earth? Is it not the sinners, not the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the people that society had shunned? We are throwing them in jail. Jesus brought them to him and worked miracles with them. So in the end, if we are looking for Christ-like, then the entirety of Parliament, let's just lock the door on them. None of them qualifies. So yes, we need leaders of integrity. Yes, we need leaders who have compassion. Yes, we need transformational leaders. We don't need Christians. Let's just remove that tag. Let's not even make it a criterion. It doesn't matter what religion the person belongs to. If only they can demonstrate the leadership qualities we need. In the end, it will not boil down to their religion. So anybody who tries to use religion as a political lever, already we've messed up. Which is why I disapproved of the comments we heard from the vice president. I don't know whether he knew that those comments were being recorded to be shared with the public, which is probably why he felt comfortable to say them. But when we all heard them, we heard what was wrong with it. So I'm sorry, but these comments, which also seek to make religion some kind of qualifying criterion, I can't get behind them. I can't get behind them. So even though I agree with the description of a leader that he added to his comments, I cannot agree with the premise, which is that it is our responsibility that we elect a Christian leader. I cannot agree with that. We have elected Christian leaders. Where did it take us? John Mahama was a Christian leader. If we were happy with him, would we have voted him out? So clearly, being a Christian, it doesn't make you a good leader. The things that make you a good leader have nothing to do with your religion. But you see, in the end, the biggest reason why what Alan Chemartin said is being criticized is not with the clarity he added, which even I agree with. It's not that. They say something. They say that the economics of what we do is not in what is produced. It is in what is consumed. That is a truism when you talk about communication. It's not about what you say. It's about what is heard. It's about what is understood. It's about what is consumed, not about what you said. So the minute you find yourself having to explain what you said, you failed. If what you say is not self-explanatory, is not consumed as you intended it to be consumed, so you have to come back and explain it, you've already failed. That's where Alan Chemartin's comment falls short, because it now requires explanation. Not good enough. If you are running for president, you should not be talking yourself into corners where now you need to be explained out of it. For me, that's it.
That's it. Kwame.
Okay, well, so let me say good evening to you, to Senior, to the Kojo Jackson, and to our viewers. I think I would look at the issue from different perspectives, and maybe in the final analysis, you would come to your own conclusion, whether or not I agree or disagree with it. Maybe I'll try to see if I can be definitive with my conclusion. See, in political communication, context is very important. and political communication highlights a few things. So if you are communicating to a particular group of people, first of all, you must understand the audience. Then you carve out your message. Then you look at the responses that will be derived relative to the message that you've put out. So let's look at where he was, the audience. Mr. Alan Kyerematen was with Christians. He had visited some church and he was making a comment in relation to the preaching that was conducted by the pastor. And then in furtherance of that, indicated that Ghana needed a Christian leader. And it was not a statement that was made in isolation. It was a statement that was contextualized. He said, we are in a country where predominantly, if you look at the various sects, we have Christians having 72% majority. And therefore, it is right to have a leader who is a Christian. So he's a Christian, he's in a church, and he's saying that we need a Christian. He himself is a Christian. Then he goes on to say that, but that leader must not only be a Christian, because there are several Christians, as Kojo has indicated, who are not Christ-like. So he goes on to say that, let me clarify my definition of who a Christian is. So you can be a Christian, but you must also, in qualifying that Christianity, be a Christ-like person. So you must act in the ways of Christ. So he says, you must bring hope to the hopeless. So a leader who is a Christian alone may or may not be able to bring hope to the people, right? But a Christian who is Christ-like is likely to bring hope to the hopeless. That's the statement that was made. Now let's look at what is contained in that statement and how it has been received. When I heard the statement, to be honest, and I still do, I did not have any problem with it. Because the Constitution is quite clear. The Constitution tells us about religious inclusivity, also tells us, in fact, gives us the various types of religion that we have in this country, that we practice in this country. And, you know, even in our practices, it has become clear that some of the religious groups that we have been relegated to the background, like our traditional settings and things like that. We don't really recognize them in anything. So they should even have a problem, right? And nevertheless, he made a statement, was well received. Now, what I find troubling is the response that was given by Richard Ahiagba in relation to the statement that was made. What did Richard say? Richard said, oh, he highly respects Alan Kyerematen, but on this occasion, we must condemn the statement that he made. Why must we condemn the statement that he made? He was living his truth. He was speaking his facts. Would you rather that he hides behind the cloak of some political meetings and makes such statements? You understand? He was very open about it. He said that this is what I believe in. Whether or not it makes you happy, that is not my issue. The issue is that he was speaking his truth. In reverse, you have a vice president who similarly met people who belong to his religious fraternity and made dangerous statements. Alan Kyerematen did not say, I'm one of you, so vote for me. He was only generalizing it. So it could even mean that Kwame Osu also sitting here in the event that I decide to go as an independent candidate, if I'm a Christian and I'm Christ-like, the Christian community should vote for me. He did not go campaigning for himself. He generalized the statement. But you have a vice president who was very specific and intentional about the choice of words, the meaning of which is contained in that statement, that I am one of you, I'm a Muslim. It's about time we have to select or vote for a Muslim leader in order that I can help you, my brothers. Is he suggesting that Christians have not been able to bring development and prosperity to the Muslim community? Is that what he's saying? So let's not be hypocrites. Let's not be hypocrites. In fact, when he made that statement, I would have thought that people who belong to the NPP would have come out to condemn him, to say that, but you have a Christian president. Are you invariably saying that Nana Akufo-Addo has not brought development to your people when he superintended over the introduction of Zongo ministry and things like that? He introduced it and said, let me help the people in the Zongo communities, your president. So has he failed? Are you going to be better because you're a Muslim? No. And I agree with Kojo and my senior when they make the point that we need to have leaders who are progressive, leaders who think about the aspirations of the people, leaders who want to help bring development to the people, irrespective of whether or not the person is a traditional leader. I don't care. All I want to see is that my rules are fixed. All I want to see is that when I go to the marketplace, I'm able to buy the things that I want to buy at very cheap prices. When I go to the fuel pump, I'm able to buy my fuel and, to be satisfied that I paid maybe 100 Ghana cedis and I've been able to fill my tank. That's all we care about. We don't really care about these things. Now, it is important that we also, in addressing this matter, place some emphasis on the possible implications of such statements, possible, especially when and if those statements are made, which statements are directed specifically at certain people. Because Kojo talks about feedback, right? When I make my statement, I make them because that's what I believe in. How you receive it is your problem. And there is no way I can sit here, even this platform that we are, this show that we are on. How I understand the statements made by Lawyer Apia Dankwa will be different from how Kojo understood those statements. Similarly, the statements that I advance or the argument that I advance will be received differently by somebody who is sitting in his house. So, on the basis of that, you cannot conclude and say that you should be mindful of the statements that you make because it may receive some reaction which necessarily may not be in your favor. So people will receive things differently. What they do with it is their problem. I did not find anything wrong with it, to be honest. Now, in conclusion, I think that if we want to eschew religious, political narratives from our discourse, it is important that across the board we look at ways of ensuring that we nip this in the bud. We shouldn't be selective and pick and choose when it suits us. And you see here, I blame and I'm directing this at this Peace Council. Very redundant, very...
redundant is okay.
Okay.
Redundant is okay.
I was going to say selective, but she said it's okay.
All right. Selective
very
is fine.
Selective, and I dare say polarized group of people who only speak when it is a different party that has spoken and not another party. What is this? When Dr. Belmia went and made that statement, did you hear from the Peace Council? I did not. I don't know whether you did. But when Alan Chamantin went and made this statement, then they come out to come and say that, oh, we must ensure that there's religious inclusivity. What is religious inclusivity about this? What Dr. Baumia said is more divisive than what Alan Chamantin has said. So why are you picking and choosing the cherry? You want to eat the sweet side, and then you give the bad side to another person. Let's not be hypocrites.
All right. I think we've all done. Can I move on to the next issue?
There's a little rejoinder if we have time for it.
No, you can
If you have time for it, if not, I mean, but there is
one
something
second
I want to
rejoinder.
briefly say. I mean, first of all, I agree that if you try to politicize religion, it's a bad move. I agree with that point Kwame is making, but I don't know if there's space for us to decide that one attempt to politicize religion is worse than another. I don't know how we get to that point. You see, it was a bad move for Dr. Baumia to attempt to, politicize his religion. It is equally bad for Alan Chamantin to do the same thing. In fact, I don't know how it is more dangerous for Dr. Baumia to have done it when his religion is a minority. Why is that more dangerous? Isn't it then more dangerous for you to do it with a religion that has more followers? Isn't that more dangerous? So I don't think we should make an attempt to make one worse than the other. That I don't think will work.
Okay.
If it's bad, it's bad. Let's accept that it's bad.
Right.
But what you say and what someone hears, what the person hears is not their problem. It's your problem. You are the one trying to communicate. So if you are misunderstood, it's your problem. Yeah. Not the problem of the person who has misunderstood you. Because you want him to understand you. And if he doesn't understand you, it's your problem. You are the one trying to be understood. So if you are misunderstood, it's your problem. Because you then have to come and try and explain for them to now come back to understanding you. It's your problem. It's not the problem of the one who misunderstands.
One second.
Yeah, with respect, I don't think that there's any doubt in the clarity of my thoughts. Because when you listen to my preamble, I said that I'm going to advance arguments from different perspectives. So you decide. But the argument about making one worse and the other not so worse is where I find trouble. Because I said he did not say that in secrecy. So that means that is what he believes in. What makes Baumia worse is that he spoke in secrecy. If he had not been recorded, we would not have known his thinking. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's more dangerous. Because then at least I know what Alan thinks. Do you understand? And I know what he believes in. But I wouldn't have known what Baumia thinks if that video had not come out. That's number one. And I'm done with that, right? Then finally.
1 second, Kwame.
Yeah. Then finally, could you say something? Aha. So if you are saying that the statement that someone makes, if it's misunderstood, is not the fault of the person who misunderstood the statement. Problem of the person who misunderstood
something, and you
I take a cue.
misunderstand.
I take a cue.
Then it is your problem.
I take a cue. Okay. Well, I mean, it ends well in my view, because I mean then it means that the Ghanaian people were hoodwinked, because I do recall that when we had this one village, one dam situation, I remember exactly what was said on Peace FM and how they intended to do it. And that was very clear. But, and that's how the statement was understood by the Ghanaian people. But in execution, it was done differently. And when we asked for better explanation, they said, what we said is not how you understood it. And so now we are giving you another explanation. So, but you were deceived, because it was on the basis of that people voted for you. Again, I leave it here.
Okay. 1 second, lawyer.
Much because I think Kwame and Kojo, all of them, they've done my job for me. Where I want to particularly side with what Kwame said in terms of the difference between, in fact, even beyond the fact that one was in secret and the other one was in open. You understand? When Alan said, his focus was not about him. After all, isn't John Mama also a Christian? But then you see, what is critical, and that's why I said I'm surprised at the response. And I'm asking, that Ghanaians don't want a leader that has integrity. Ghanaians don't want a leader that understands that to lead is to serve. Because he said, we want a Christian who is also Christ-like. So it's not about you being a Christian. It's about you. His focus was more on the Christ-likeness. And this is the first time. Last year, he had the opportunity of going to what's called Parliament Church. And then they asked to pray for him. And then he took the mic and said that, and then made a prayer request. And his prayer request was that they should pray so that he becomes the Christ-like leader that Ghana needs. So clearly something he believes in. So Ghana needs a leader who is Christ-like. But we do not need a leader who is parochial, because that statement made by Baumia said that was what it was. He's standing there, listen, I'm part of you. Choose me so I'll come and pursue your agenda. That is essentially what he's saying. And for me, that's where the difference lies. Whereas one person is bringing about the values that you must have if you are Christ-like. But I wasn't talking about the values that a Muslim must have. You understand? Because the Muslims have very good values too. As I was when even in their greeting, peace be unto everyone. So if His Excellency Dr. Bawumia was talking about the Muslim in terms of the values, I don't think any right-thinking member of Ghana would have had a problem. Because you see, you can't segregate politics from religion, because our values, our principles, how we think, in fact, even the kind of marriages we choose is based on because of our religious values. So you can't segregate the two. But when you are projecting your religion based on the values, then I don't think we can have a problem with it. And that's where I think the difference lies between what Alan said and what His Excellency Dr. Bawumia said.
Thank you, lawyer. Let's go straight to our second issue. We will not hand over power to the NDC. And there's a statement by, Brian Echampon. I want us to watch these videos, two of them. I think he's made the same statement twice now. One about 11 months ago, and one just this weekend. And so I want us to watch the two videos, and then we come back, and then stay with us. We'll be right back.
Ukraine, Russia, war, COVID. Am I into echo from opposition? Who is having to do? Am I echo slow? I'm saying, this time is possible to do. Biden should say, dollar every 17, about 10. Petrol every 17, about 9. And never in echo from economy. It is possible. It is possible. It is possible. June, July this year. I am a 4 about the soya city. Yeah, to Fieda and your boy is was in them or China or Bessory in Tianadia quite them said they pay a car and my hotel another water. Officer saying and I'm in Jinaha camera for the Mohammed in Miami in Becabio. Officer said, I'm in Hana because NDC poll, Omumpo 2024, Amano Omu win it. Omu win it. Now, where we nearby, Yadimawana. Where we nearby, Yadimawana. Yafama one, Yafama watching every summer winning. And that time now make us as a no. Nagana Yawa Huchiremu. Na Yahu here. Na Ebiane Ebo Ayade. Food inflation and number 61%. Inflation and 55%. Cement, Ecosro, iron rod board, Ecosro, contractor for Esani IMF for Shishayeti. Now Omajaya Juma Emiaye. Ajada 111 Yentimin. dollar and 19 bibia bo akosoro ama ye ho akire ye na saa time no afisa say ye wo ahokyere mu no na aye NDC fo adwen say saa time no na ye ba beto aba wo Ghana ha ntensan say ye ko ahokyere mu ntino Ghana for this anibre no ebeto aba atia MPP na mijina e ka say ebedru say ye beto aba no na enwusie ni ebo ahata Ghana so no na aba form ama amanfo ehu adwuma pa MPP fo ye no wona gina so e dey to aba ma ye anga zara mi kan and inflation na was 61% no and now was 23%. And now inflation, food inflation, and now was 61%, no, and now I had 27%. And now dollar, and then 19, I had 13. And now IMF in Shishayano, and Mwaku, and prior so, at to Onyam Sukwai, Yavako Tamaguzwana. And Yamanina, Shishasa Abino, and now a month for a year. Na enu December no na dollar na day ati na aduane bo so day ati na adwumayefo ahye adwuma se wo Ghana na ye hu ha ye de beto aba na de ma MPP aba Dr. Mahama Obia aba wini aba ye president of Ghana Rebecca Sadi kwa ye no 2024 election no a mamu election Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia or your 60 years. John Mahama, or your 65 years. Jane, Professor, or your 72 years.
Welcome back. So that was Brian Achampon, being Brian Achampon. Kwame.
You know, when we're getting close to elections, that's when you see political dunderheads. People who think the country belongs to them. People who think that without them nothing can happen. Without them governments cannot run. People who speak without packing their conscience behind their words. People who speak and rather spew garbage by reason of satisfying their appointors. People who speak without taking into consideration how delicate our democracy is. And the fact that our democracy is very fragile and with a little spark may create, instability or may lead to instability. You see, I keep saying that, the democracy that we are practicing in this country, and that is my personal view, our democracy has survived not because political leaders have been deliberate about ensuring the survival of our democracy. I keep saying this. I keep saying that it is just that the Ghanaian people ourselves, we have decided that whatever the cost is, it's better than, going back into the dark days. So we will accept our democracy as it is and run with it. So no matter how badly we are being governed, we will just stay and wait. After 4 years, we'll make a decision. And that is why our democracy is thriving. It's not because people have been deliberate to say that we want to enforce the provisions in the Constitution. Or we have been deliberate to say that the laws which govern us, we want to ensure that those laws are respected and those laws are what we use in our daily, governance process. So I find it very, very troubling when we have people who have hoodwinked the Ghanaian people into believing that they have the magic wand to to wrestle the Ghanaians from the shackles of poverty come out after performing abysmally to make such ridiculous statements? Why? Why do you think that you will not hand over power?
Let me tell you my difficulty with all of this.
Yeah.
This is not the first time Brian Achampon has said this specific one. This is the second time he's making this statement. This is this particular statement. Let's put that on a banner. In the past, and I refer specifically to the Ayawaso West Wogon, violence saga, a lot of it came back to Brian Achampon. Now, I mean, we are all here consistently discussing problematic statements that Brian Achampon makes. Till when? Till when?
Yes. And that's the problem, really. Because, I mean, if this guy makes, and especially also that he has a history of having been involved in illegal activities, which in the estimation of the opposition led to the victory of the MPP, right? So if you have somebody who has been, has been pointed at as the person who was directly involved in some of these violence which happened during the 2020 elections, then we must be very careful. And, and I keep saying this, that there's no smoke without fire. When you see that smoke is belching through the windows of a building, it means that there's some fire there. So this Brian Achampon guy, who has been very consistent without fail, right, in trying to send a message to the Ghanaian people that even if we lose, we will not hand over power, then it means he knows exactly what he's talking about. And this is very, very serious. It has security implications. And until now, I do not know why he's not being called by the security apparatus to answer questions as to why he's so confident that they will not hand over power. What does he mean by that? They will not hand over power. And he tries to justify it by saying that, at the time when he made the first statement, even at the time when he made the first statement, the economy was on a proper footing. Now, the economy is booming. And therefore, on the basis of that, he's reiterating and reaffirming the statement that he made that they will continue to be in power.
Right.
I mean, is he the one to decide whether they have to be in power or not? It's like ultimately the Ghanaian people who have to decide. Right. But when you continuously make such statements, it means that you want to rig the elections. And if you rig the elections, you will plunge this country into chaos. And that is something that we must not countenance.
Countenance. All right. Kojo?
When I saw this topic on the roster, I wondered what I was going to say. Brian Achampon may be wrong that the MPP will win. He may be wrong about that. But he can't be faulted for believing that the MPP will win. You can't fault him for that. That's his party. That's the party he's campaigning for.
He's not being faulted for thinking that. He says we will not hand over power. Those are words, Kojo. You and I, we believe in words.
I'll start again. Brian Achampon may be wrong that the MPP will win, but he can't be faulted for believing that they will win. That's his party. That's the party he will campaign for. That's the party he will believe in. So if he says that his party
will not hand over power.
Every time you interrupt me, I'll start again.
Kojo, please feel free to start again. But the point is that he said we will not hand over power.
Brian Achampon may be wrong for believing that his party will win. But you can't fault him for having that belief. That's his party. He has every right to believe that they will win the next election. And when you listen to what he said on that platform, he was quite clear. He said that his party will win. The NDC will not win. And if you don't win, do they hand over power to you? No. So if you don't win, they will not hand over power to you. And he does not believe that the NDC will win. So there will be no handing over of power to the NDC because they are not going to win. That's what he believes. The results of the election might prove him wrong. And if the results of the election prove him wrong, it's not Brian Achampong who is going to determine whether or not power is handed over to the NDC. It is the people of Ghana. It is the electorate who will determine who is given power, not Brian Achampong. He is simply expressing his belief and desire that his party will not lose to the NDC. And if they don't lose to the NDC, then there will be no handing over of power. As for that one, he can say it till the cows come home. All it will do is rally those who share that belief. That is what happens in elections. That's what so those who believe Alan Chemantin will win will also be saying the same thing.
They will not hand over power to the NDC.
Those who believe that Alan Chemantin will win will be saying the same thing, that they are the ones to whom power will be handed over. Those who believe that John Mahama will win will be saying the same thing, that they are the ones who will be taking over power in January 2025. That's the nature of elections. Everybody campaigns for their party. I don't really understand what we are supposed to applaud or condemn in this matter. What else will he say?
We will win the election.
Every time he's given a microphone, he will say the same thing, that his party will win. I don't really know what analysis we are supposed to do about this. What else do you expect an MPP person to say?
We will win the election.
Yes, that's what he will say.
He said we will not hand over power to the NDC.
He said more than that. He said that the NDC will not win the next election. So we will not hand over power to the NDC. That's what he said. What else do you expect him to say?
We will win the election.
Yeah, I don't really know what analysis to put into this. Every NPP member will say the same thing. Every NDC member will say the opposite. Every Alan Chemantin follow, every Nana Bediako. I mean, what else? What isn't this what they do? But in the end, it is the voter whose desire will come to pass, regardless of what any of them say. So the less we discuss, the better. Let's just wait and see what the election
Thank you,
has
Peter. Come in,
to show.
In fact, I think I'm a tyro when I sit amongst you. I'm a tyro because I'm just a lawyer. I don't have any deep knowledge of communication like you do. So I learn from you. No, it's true. I'm telling you. I learn from you. I learn from all of you. I learn from Dikojo. And right now, I've learned a principle which is going to guide me in how I communicate. Maybe, I don't know if it's communication 101. That when I'm communicating, it's not about what I mean, but it's about
how it was received.
I think in law there's something similar, but I don't think it's as deep as what I've learned here. So there's something we say in law that justice must not only be done, it must manifestly be seen to be done. And things can be said in various ways to convey exactly what you mean. So we won't hand over power to NDC. He could have said we will win the election. You understand? So I know that those of us from Allah will never say that, because we can say we'll snatch power from the MPP or we will win the mandate of the people. It's all to the same purpose, because at the end of the day, Alan Chemantin would have been president. Now, also within the context, and I've also learned that the context is also very critical. And the context, one of the most critical parts of the context is the person making the speech, your audience, but the person. The person, both in terms of who he is and what position he holds. So let's say if I go and say something, it won't have the same effect or impact like if Brian says it. Because I'm just a lawyer. I'm just Mr. Andrew Apiadankwa. Should I add first of my name? I like the mistake. I like the mistake. You know, I'm also a Liverpool supporter. I love club. I'm the normal one. Just Mr. Apiadankwa, first of my name. You understand? When I say something, it won't have the same impact and effect as Brian Champon saying, because Brian Champon is a minister, a cabinet minister for that matter. He's a known leader, an MP, one of the MPs who are not Christ-like, like my brother said. And could you agree with you? I agree with you on all fours, not Christ-like. You understand? And I think that Brian, having been minister, first of all, national security minister, not so. So he's had opportunity of managing the peace and the harmony and then having been an agriculture minister, he ought to understand the impact of speeches in the well-being of or the peace of the nation. After all, we should learn from. I know he didn't use the word cockroach like was used in Rwanda, but I know Brian understands exactly what he was trying to tell the rank and file of the MPP when he said we will not hand over power to, because if you are supposed to bring that speech, if you won't hand over power, then just that alone, and that was some people just hear and they'll stop, because people rarely in this country, people rarely read entire speeches. Because why would the director of communication of the MPP just stop at Christian and not go lower when we would have seen Christ-like? A lot of people scratch the service of. So you should know, as a leader, you ought to know. And listen, a lot of people are just going to stop at the part that's sensational. We will not hand over power. And I can bet you about 99% of the MPP rank and file, because of the noise, the noise, the euphoria on the grounds, they will not hear because they won't win the election. They will just hear we won't hand over power. Understand? But I'm not surprised with Brian. Because the last time he said that, he even added the word patapa and all. So,
context.
Yeah, he even added patapa and all.
Yeah.
Why? Because Brian is reflecting the spirit of the NPP. What Brian is saying is one of the clearest manifestations of what the NPP has become. As we should recall, that initially, when the NPP was the NPP, so-called, the good-natured, good-mannered, what's called, the very likable brand, the brand of Akrachifo. When they were in those days, when we said Kukrudu, the response was Eshi. When we said Kukrudu, the response was Eshi Radu. But from 2009, it changed. When you say Kukrudu, you say power. Kukrudu power, power. Yes. When we went for meetings and say Kukrudu, if you say NPP, say Kukrudu. And the response will be power. Because the NPP, in terms of its character, in terms of its value set, in fact, in terms of the spirit, it's like the old spirit went away, was exorcised, and the new spirit was breathed into the party. That new spirit, that new NPP spirit, is one that thinks that, or that believes firmly that in politics and in life, the end justifies the means. And that end is power. So, yes, they are very poised. They want the power, but they don't want to lead. In fact, and that dictates the kind of leadership they even choose. When you go and talk about giving Christ-like leadership, the MPP is not happy. They don't like it, because Christ-like leadership will believe in that Machiavellian principle. That's at the end justifies the means. Christ-like leadership will tell you that, listen, if you want to be a leader, then you must be prepared to be to be crucified on the cross for the good of mankind. But they don't want to be crucified. They don't want to sacrifice like Christ did. But they want the power. Why? Because when they have the power, they have land cruisers. They'll make deals. They'll get the small girls. They can buy houses for them. They can go to Dubai. They can go to... They want the trappings of power. Because, listen, Nana himself told us that when Mahama came to power, before Mahama came to Andakufo, $1 was what? 1 cedi. When Mahama came to power and Mills, $1, 2 cedis. And he now expected that Mahama and will just say what? I'll resign. But why did Mama resign? Because of what the trappings of power, because of the envelope under the table. These are not my words.
Lawyer, you're on your own.
These are yeah, but these are things they said. I'm not. That's what Nana said. So if you've supervised, if you supervise $1, 13 or 14 cedis. The last time I checked, it was almost 14 cedis. If you are principled, if the party, the spirit that is in you is not familiar, and I say this unashamedly because I'm so convinced that the spirit in that party is a familiar spirit. That's why they have an issue, it's an antichrist spirit. That's why they have an issue with Christ-like leadership. Because why on earth, if you do not have, let me laugh, I beg you, you know, Kojo is also my role model. I'll start like Kojo. Anytime you interrupt, I'll start. I was looking for like 8 minutes.
You have to be running up. You have 2 seconds. Actually, no, half of a second.
All I'm trying to say is,
right.
See, parties choose leaders that reflect them. But they say that our leaders are a reflection of our people. And that's where I agree with, even though we are 72% Christians, our lifestyle is not Christ-like. We can't argue about that. Only few Ghanaians have Christ-like lifestyles. The parties also have their spirit, and they choose leaders that reflect their spirit. Or because when they are choosing, they choose leaders with the consideration of their value set. Their partner is familiar. So when you speak like Brian speaking, and I don't mind Brian, if you know Brian, I don't know him personally, my senior brother was still his friend. Very nice person, I'm telling you. Lovely guy. But why would Brian be saying this? Because if he won't make a headway in the party, if he speaks like Alan Chamantin speaks, if he speaks Christ-like, he will only make a headway if when he goes on stage, he speaks to the party people, he submits himself for the familiar spirit to enter and consume him.
Right.
Then he speaks
okay, lawyer.
In the manner and language the party wants. But let me give him one assurance.
Lawyer.
Just to end, Ghanaians want transformation. We want a leadership that will bring us together. And certainly he's not reflecting that. Right. And because of that, they are going to lose so massively. Right now, what I'm talking about is the percentage to get to. It's not about the loss, the fact of the loss. They will lose. It's an issue. I know people think that the NDC, but even the NDC, Alan Chimatu will win. Let me say that, and from Paumia and his likes, the familiar spirit people, Ghanaians, this Easter, the Holy Spirit has consumed us, and that Holy Spirit will cause us to reject this familiar spirit that has plunged our country into this abyss, where the fundamental principles in economics that says that the most secured bond is government or government bond. Right now in Ghana, will you buy Kojo? Will you buy government bonds? Yes, and when you've done this calamity to our nation, you think that you win an election. You don't think that way if the spirit has consumed you.
Thank you,
it's
lawyer.
a familiar spirit.
Thank you, lawyer. Oh, okay.
And
very quick one.
Very, very, very briefly. And Senior would agree that you only go for interpretation if there's ambiguity. There's no ambiguity in the statement that was made by Brian. And I don't think that we must even believe that argument. It's clear that even if the NDC wins, we will not hand over power. That's what it means, essentially. That's essentially what it means. But you sat here, you said that the maker of the statement must be responsible enough to know that people are listening and people form their own interpretation on the basis of the statement that was made. So I am. No, what you said. No, what I'm saying now, I'm actually making referencing what you said in relation to our Chematin statement. And I'm saying that there should not be any ambiguity in your statement, such that it will be received differently. What I am saying is that, per what he has said, and from the previous videos that I've watched, and this statement is only to reinforce that which he has said already. It presupposes that is the plan. They will not hand over power to the NDC.
You are contextualizing the West, but you're deciding to stay on the surface of the West.
Whether or not the NDC wins, they will not hand over power. Simplicity. And they will employ all forms of tactics to ensure that they don't hand over power. Simple.
So what is allowing is
let's move along. I mean, so like I was saying, you want to put it in context based on who he is, based on former pronouncements, based on things he said before. Kojo, you want to stay on the words and say that literally these words do not mean anything. So, right, so they're using the literal approach. You are using the purposive and the golden rule of communication. You know, in essence, can we move along? Can we move along?
I'm moving on a spiritual
And
level.
he is moving on
Oh, the rest spiritual.
You are politicizing religion.
Dear Lord.
Oh dear. Okay. So I mean, another very interesting issue that has, you know, been very topical this week. My issue of choice actually for this week has been, and I'm sorry that I use my to supersede your issue of the scholarships. We might come back to it next week, but I think that this one is also very important. We are not discussing, we don't have enough time for it. Maybe next week, hopefully. But this issue of the Dohu Wuloma alleged marriage is so nuanced. So nuanced. It's like a big tree with so many stems and branches, you know, and all of that. And I know that we are going to get into the conversation. I'm excited and expectant to hear what everybody has to say on the issue. My issue with all of this is that regardless what the analysis may be, and I'm sorry that I'm also preempting this conversation, regardless what the analysis may be, whether that marriage is an actual marriage, is a betrothal, is traditional, whatever the argument might be, I insist that we should not have a 12-year-old girl in the mix of any of those arguments. Whether your argument is that it's betrothal, whether your argument that it's a natural marriage, whether your argument is that it's traditional, my argument is one. You cannot have a 12-year-old child in the mix of any of this conversation. On that note, gentlemen, maybe I'll start with you, Kojo.
I think I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to correct something that I've been dying to correct. The word is betrothal. Betrothal. And it's not you I'm correcting.
Betrothal.
Yes.
Could I take my correction?
Truth.
Please go,
It's not even
ahead.
you.
It's just because we
the
don't have
entire
time.
Ghana that I'm trying to correct here,
We
because
stand corrected,
all my
Kojo.
colleague journalists on all networks
Kojo,
have been
we
saying
stand corrected. Say it again. I'll repeat it after you.
Betrothal.
Betrothal.
It is, you are betrothed.
Thank you, Kojo. Can you please go ahead now?
Thank you very much. That is off my chest. I feel better now.
I'm happy that you feel
All right.
better. Kojo, please go ahead. Please go ahead, Kojo. I don't want you guys to waste time on this matter. Let's go ahead.
Let's get to it.
Right.
So I read a headline earlier yesterday. It said people of what's the area where this thing is happening? Ghana, right? People of Nungwa divided over Wulumo betrothal case. And my heart broke. Because I realized in that moment that we are talking about a child. This whole conversation is about a child who is being committed into an arrangement, whether it is with the God, with the priest, is being committed into an arrangement of marriage. And we are divided over it. So that means that there are some Ghanaians who are on the side that says this is okay. There are Ghanaians who think this is okay. So we are divided. How can we be divided on this? It's very much like hearing a story that Ghanaians are divided on defilement of child. We are divided on this. You see, when did we decide that tradition is stronger than law? When? Was it when we were abolishing trucocy? Did we decide then that tradition is stronger than law? Is this not the same country that abolished trucocy? Even though people had been slicing women's clitorises for generations, did we not decide that the law protects these women from whatever your tradition may be? Didn't we decide that in Ghana? And have we not carried it out? Did somebody die? Did some God come and kill us all because we stopped them from doing that? So what's the difference here? Are we not the same country that decided that when a chief dies, there's no need for us to go and kill children and add them to the chief, behead children and add them to the chief's body? Was it not Ghana? And when we made that decision, did some God come and kill us? So what's our problem? This one too, we are waiting till when? We want to be divided over this one until when? We want to have a debate over this one until when? We are marrying off children. Like, I'm sorry, are we stupid? Are we? Look, I live in Accra. The girls are my landlords. If I want to buy land, I can't do it without their consent. But this is ridiculous. I'm sorry. And if you are going to banish me because of this, I'm happy to be banished. Because on this one, there cannot be a debate. There cannot be a debate. We have two lawyers here. They will tell you that our constitution says that in all things, the interest of the child must come first. First, before everything else in our lives, the interest of the child must come first. We have denied the interest of the child in so many ways in this country. So many ways. We have had leaders who have put the child last. Our children, we can't feed them in schools. They are sitting under trees to go to school. We can't give them health care when they are sick. We prioritize everything over our children. We made Adwoa Safu their minister. It is clear that we don't care about children. Then some priest decides that he is going to marry a child to a god, and we are divided. We are divided. Some people actually think it's okay. I can scarcely believe it. And you know, when the BBC starts writing stories, then suddenly we become all precious. Why is BBC writing about? Why are we like that? It's not about why is BBC writing that about us. Why are we like that? If we can't answer that question, let's not go and disturb BBC, who were sitting there somewhere when we decided to marry a child to a god. Then we start again. Sorry.
Well, lawyers, who's going?
I think Kojo's explanation sort of addresses a number of the fundamental issues which we have all raised. And it is important that, again, we sort of try to explain why it is bad, okay, and why we cannot be divided on this matter. Why it is bad and why we cannot be divided on this matter. The Constitution is quite clear. I think if you read Article 28(2) of the Constitution, the interest of the child, whether marriage, whether betrothal, or any other form of work, in the Constitution, I think it puts in work, right, must not be allowed. So the child, the interest of the child is very, very paramount. Okay? If you read, so there are different laws that govern the rights of children. So you have the Children's Act, and then you have the Domestic Violence Act. All those acts, okay, have sections in them which deals directly with matters relative to children. And so you cannot marry off a child, like what you have said. You cannot betroth a child to an elderly person. And you cannot do all of that.
Act.
The Children's Act.
560.
Yes, 560. I think section 14(2) states that, right? So clearly
14 to 18.
Yeah, but the 14(2) specifically deals, yeah. So clearly, I mean, at all levels, from the supreme law of the land to the other subservient laws, it's not possible. It's not possible, right? So children are very, very important. Now, how do we look at the enforcement, or rather the provisions in the Constitution and the other laws, and pull parity with tradition culture? Okay. Culture is the way of life of a group of people, and culture evolves. So tradition must also be dialectic. It must grow. Okay. So when society is growing, society must grow in light of changing times. You cannot say that you are in 2024 and still living the lifestyle of persons who are, you know, in the primeval days. It's not possible, right? So you have to adapt to changing times, and that is why the Constitution is very. I mean, the international Constitution is very important, because we see when the Constitution was being put together, they factored into the construction of the provisions of the Constitution all of these things, culture, tradition, things like that, because they understood that there are different traditions and different cultures in the country, but those traditions and cultures, some of which in the estimation of the Constitution were moribund, and therefore they needed to find a way of ensuring that. I must stop smiling, you are confusing me.
Yeah, it's just the words, Kwame, the words.
They needed to find a way of ensuring that we still maintained some level of culture, but did so within the expression of the Constitution. I don't know if I'm making sense. Now, what I'm saying is, and Kojo took the wind out of my sail when he made mention of burying chiefs with beheaded children. Because I grew up in Asante Mampo, and when I was growing up, we heard of those tales. And they were a truism at the time. But it is murder if you do that now. Circumcision. Female circumcision. Genital, whatever they call it. Do you understand?
Genital mutilation.
Now it's against the laws of the country. So yes, there are some things that may seem right in the eyes of man, but in the eyes of the law, it's a clear violation of the rights of the person. They say she's 16 years, and you see the law defines who a child is.
They say she's almost 16.
Yeah, but the law defines who a child is. A child is somebody below the age of 18, not so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
and now you are referring to
not consent.
18, isn't it?
I'm talking about not consenting.
18.
Yeah, child.
The meaning of care and protection for the purpose of this, a child.
Child, 18.
Yes.
So if you read the Children's Act,
yes,
it says below 18, the age of 18 years. Do you understand? So whatever it is, whatever activity, whether religious, whether tradition, whether culturally or whatever it is, insofar as the child or the person involved is below 18 years, it is in clear violation of the law. And there cannot be any explanation for that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And once it is in violation of the law, it's an offense. And the law must take its full course. So on the basis of that, the person, whether the girl is almost 16 years, or is 12 years, or 17 and a half years, okay, if you purport to marry the child for yourself or for a deity, you have clearly violated or acted in ways which is at variance with the Constitution, first of all, and with the other laws which protects the rights of children. Simplicity.
Thank you.
In conclusion, with the grace of respect, in conclusion, they say ignorance is no excuse, right? Yeah. So, I mean, there's that explanation that, oh, it's for the deity and not for the human being. But the law says no child must be forced into any marriage. It didn't say whether to a human being, whether to a spirit, whether to...
Come in, eliminate the force.
No,
no child should be...
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's not about whether she was forced or she consented or she's willing. You cannot.
No.
Because when you use the word force,
that's not what the law says. The law uses force.
Hold on.
But I agree with you.
Yes.
No child should be married off.
Thank you.
Because at that time or at that age, they don't have consent. They cannot. The law presumes that. And you know, it's quite interesting, senior. Even when people are being married at the age of 18 years, you know, the law requires that something is done. express consent of the parents. In the absence of that, the Attorney General must provide consent. After 21 years, you are at liberty to do. You don't need consent. So even at age 18, where we say that between 18 and 21, so 18, 19, 19, 20,
21.
No, 20 and a half.
Yeah,
you understand? Yeah. So between 18 and even then, they said you need express, listen to the word, express consent from both parents or a custodian. In the absence of that, the AG has to give you that consent to indicate that you are of age and you can be married off. So you understand? So so clearly, this is a submission that I want to. I think the Ghanaians, Ghanaians will be best determine what I intend to say.
Thank you. Come in, lawyer.
I think my position will take all of you off guard, but academically, I agree with everything you said.
Don't forget spiritually.
Academically, spiritually, I agree with everything they've said. Kwame's exposure on the law, fantastic, academically. But the reality, I want to disagree. I want to disagree, and I bet you, if this case should go to the Supreme Court, it will fall flat. It won't succeed. One, we must take a critical look into the word marriage. A critical look at the definition of the word marriage. Of the two, the fact that under Ghanaian law, you see in the law, everything boils down to evidence. How do you prove deity? You understand? So within the context of our law, really, there's no marriage for there to even be an uproar. Within the context of our law, and in the sense that marriage is in Ghana, the Ghanaian law, is a union between a man and a woman. It has not a man and a deity or a woman and a deity. You get within the context of that, there's even no marriage for which supposing they take them to criminal court, how are they going to succeed?
Well, so in terms of evidence, I'm sorry, Laura, in terms of the evidence, would an invitation card suffice? Is that enough? No, I'm really messing up my words. Is that enough?
No, because really, what is the marriage?
Because there were invitation cards that were sent out.
No, deity.
On those invitation cards, we didn't see deity.
No, but it's what the invitation cards and what did the invitation cards say?
I'm going into areas I should not have.
Yes, because you per my understanding corrected. It is a purported marriage between the young lady and the deity.
And so here's what I want to be. We all saw videos, and in the videos we saw an MC, speak. I think that all of this deity clarification is coming after the uproar.
Okay, so there's an invitation.
So from the beginning till we got to the points where Ghanaians said, "Hold on," the marriage was between the young girl. In fact, we were told that it was going to be his fourth wife. Okay. This is the clarification that came in the beginning, where this man was marrying this young girl. Customarily, traditionally, we understand that there were supposed to be traditional implications of the marriage. It wasn't a normal marriage. It wasn't like the way, lawyer, you got married to your wife. That in addition to that, there were traditional implications and the roles that that's the conversation that came in the beginning. We had the MC and all of that. Here, I'll speak to what could just be about ambiguity. The fact that you have customs that even within your setup, people can misunderstand and misinterpret. That's a problem for me. But the point is that all of this deity conversation is coming after the fact.
Okay.
After the fact. We've always known this to be a marriage between a man and a woman with traditional implications.
And that's why I said, in terms of principle, in terms of the law, the academics, that's not with what Kojo and Kwame are saying. Certainly, we can't sit there and allow a custom or a culture that will sit down on consent for small girls to be married off, as in the manner. But you see, having said, I think there's a very big confusion in the country. You know, as in before we was started the show, as we were talking about a huge confusion because of our history. You understand? Because I think after 1851, when we took that British kind of constitution, we had a lot of practices which they felt, and not they felt, which clearly were unconscionable, like pioneering, slaughtering people to bury people. So many. In fact, our generation was a generation that abolished the mutilation of the clergy. You understand? I think there's so much that has been hidden in certain parts of our country about some of these practices. You see, because in fact, you know, I was going to make an argument which was even different from, I started the dating one because I'm coming, which was going to be different because see, all this confusion is because of the confusion in our way of life. Yeah, you understand? Because when I was going to I was advising my friends, but I was supposed to do the same. You marry under your custom, and then within a week, you go and convert that marriage into the Cap 127 marriage. Even in our names, we were feeding. So I have a house name that all of you don't even know. You understand? I have a house name, and yet you have Brofudin. You understand? I think there's so much work that we need to do as Ghanaians, all of us.
Relics of colonialism.
Yeah, in streamlining our, because clearly, I'm saying I was going to go the dating way to advance. I'm coming. No, to advance an argument which was going to come to what I'm saying now, as in terms of the confusion in our way of life. But they can have recourse to this argument because we all of us accept that if you know and your war things that are official. As in when the Reverend Father's issue came up, the double identity issue. But you see, that issue was only possible because of the system I'm talking about. It's a system that where we have feeding, and then we have the school name. We discussed this issue here on your morning show. I can bet you the girls are really up in arms, and we shouldn't just dismiss it. But see, but that issue can crop up because we've not managed as a people to integrate as one. So we have Ghana, and within that Ghana we have some people who feel that when there's something, because that's the example they give, when there's something said go and people should go and sleep, there was no uproar. But when they are Wulome, I'm just real quick an argument that was made here yesterday forcefully by Sampiali and there are a lot of Ghanaians who hold that same view. But why can they make the argument? You understand? Why do and right into Kojo's argument? Excellent. As in, I have a daughter. I don't know what I'll do if somebody comes to take my daughter at even age 21 that they're going to marry her off. But yet, we are divided on this issue. But I'm saying that division, that disagreement is because of our failure, our inability as a people to realize and recognize that, listen, we are Ghanaians right now. We are Ghanaians first right now. You understand? And forge a Ghanaian culture while recognizing, let's say, the fact that we have some traditional authorities, and clearly specify the roles the traditional authorities play. It's a huge, is a ticking time bomb. I'm telling you.
Right.
So for me, as in that I said, and let me make it clear. In terms of the principle, as I don't need to, I think Kojo and Kwame have done an excellent job in explaining the principle. I don't know what's more to add. You see, we shouldn't tolerate small girls being married off for your word. I bet you I'll try. You know where I come from. Where I come from.
Don't
try it.
It's a noun.
No.
It's a noun. You don't mind him saying.
I won't even argue. You that word. And even in fact, even in the way that law was couched, because once you bring force, knowing that when somebody is under the age of 16, and 18 for the purposes of marriage. You can't even bring the word forth because they do not have the power to consent in the first place.
Right.
When you do a law that brings the word forth, then you are presupposing that if they consent, knowing that at that age they can't consent. I don't know if I'm making, because there's no age of consent for what's the word be so betrothal. So oh, I swear I'll go I told myself and the struggle will tell it I'll come see the secret so you see the point is I think there should be better clarity in our laws.
Right.
There should be better clarity in our way of life. You shouldn't give you a situation where people can hide under a custom, and the custom that is only known to, even within the gangs, only known to the Wolomed themselves. There should be that clarity in our way of life. And when we've done that, and I think we should do that, leadership for us has become a matter of have they done our roles, are they providing water, because of the calamitous failure of leadership here. Because other than that, leadership is also about how you shape people's ways of life. And I think it's good this has come to the fore. So as the people collectively, we should also expend some of our energies in bringing clarity into the way of life we choose for ourselves.
Right. Only that I don't agree with lawyer. I feel that there are some points at which we draw a line, and a child being married and should be one of those lines. Yeah, could you come in? Absolutely.
I was going to say that, look, this is not a matter of condemning tradition. Our tradition is so rich and important, and it requires preservation. But there are points at which our tradition become unlawful. And at that point, the line must be drawn on the side of law. Quite simple. I mean, I think that one's straightforward. Look, I understand the plight of the gangs when they compare the compliance that they enjoy to their traditional authority. When they compare it to that of the Asantes, I can see why they will be upset, especially because they are custodians of our capital, the land in our capital city, the most valuable land in this country. They are the custodians of it. So I understand when they get upset that when they issue a ban on noise making, for example, people want to fuss and disagree, and I mean there should be the same level of respect, if not more, for the traditional beliefs that have guided some of these behaviors till now. Because to be honest with you, in some of these areas, even the law is failing. Because someone can come and buy land next to my house and build a church. And then when I'm trying to sleep, they'll be making noise with their
dawn prayers.
Thank you.
I'm speaking from experience, by the way.
Right. That can happen. So thank God for the ban on noise making, which will give us a bit of respite for some time. Some of these things are even filling gaps that the law is failing to properly cater for. Even though the law is beautifully written, the enforcement is just not up to scratch. So no, this is not about condemning tradition, especially not the Ghana tradition. But let's be clear. Nothing about marrying off children is right. Nothing about it. There is no way to twist or slant it to make it right, to make it sound a little bit better. The worst one I heard was when they said they are doing that to protect her from other men.
Bow the dash.
So do you know what that is like? It's like I'm robbing you to protect you from robbers. What does that mean? What does that mean? I'm beating you to protect you from bullies. What's that? The thing that you are protecting her from is what you are doing to her. No. You don't protect a child from other men by marrying her off. No, I'm sorry. There is just a certain failure of logic there. And nothing will make me side with that, no matter how much respect I have for the Ghana tradition. Easy. No.
Kwame.
I just wanted to say that it must not be lost on us, in appreciating the specific provision in the Constitution which addresses the needs and wants, the rights, privileges of children. The Constitution was deliberately couched to address some of these issues. It may not have been direct. You see, it may not have been direct that there are some cultural practices which may necessarily, allow for these things to happen. But that is why the Constitution also was very specific. Mentioned the age, mentioned the act that when practiced is a violation of that specific provision, and did not segregate, was general, marriage, simpliciter. So whether it is to a deity, whether it's to a priest, whether it's to whoever it is, insofar as the age of the child is below the legal age required for that person to be married off, then it is a violation of the law. Because you see, and essentially because it's a matter of capacity. Just as we are not allowed to sleep with a 12-year-old child, just as you are not allowed to sleep with somebody who is 16 years because the person may not have the capacity to think about the nature and effect of their consequences. Okay, then it is equally not right for you to marry off someone because at that time they lack the capacity to think about the nature.
To give consent.
Yes, so I'm not just saying consent because I want to explain it. Consent is not just, consent is that you do not appreciate the nature, the effect, and the consequences of your action. So if you are unable to appreciate that, then it means that you cannot allow, it means that you didn't freely allow yourself. Somebody robbed you of your appreciation of the nature, effect, and consequences of that action. And that is why it is illegal. So yes, we may respect tradition, we may respect culture, but there are some cultures that in my estimation now is moribund, and we must necessarily do something about it. Moving forward, and I'm not big on chieftaincy, I'm not big on tradition. I'll be very honest with you. In wrapping up, okay. I'm not big on chieftaincy, I'm not big on but I also think that the Constitution has done us great disservice by not specifically telling us or itemizing the things that tradition should do and the things that chiefs should do. Because if you have a chief in Kumasi who says that my word is law, no court in Ghana can overturn that which I say, I find it very disrespectful to the Constitution. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because what the chiefs have is not something which necessarily is backed by Constitution. The Constitution respects the office of a chief, but that is it. The powers which they exercise flow from the Constitution. So if you make such a statement, I find it very repulsive.
Okay.
And that is why all of these things are happening. Ultimately, like Ojo and my senior have said, we must have this conversation. And we must be very aggressive to have this conversation in order that in the future, some people may not suffer. Because it may not necessarily be marrying off a 12-year-old child. It may be something else. That
to be in violation of our Constitution.
Yes.
Thank you, Kwame. In ending, I just like to read the words of.
Give me my last.
We don't. We have overrun actually.
We have overrun.
Please spare us. And just give me 1 second to read something from a traditional leader in all of this conversation to make the point that this is not a conversation against tradition. This is a traditional leader speaking. But before we just to also say that there's so much explanation. Contradictory explanation about the MC being wrong, about it being traditional, about it not being the explanations, I'm sorry, are many, they are varied. It just says to me that there's too much ambiguity in the practice. And what I would advise, respectfully and humbly, is that we get clarity within ourselves what it is that we are doing. Because then we can come out and say what it is that we are doing, so the rest of us can perhaps appreciate and understand. Because all of it's confusing and it's contradicting itself so much so that even within the system there's confusion as to what is happening. That's for me is worrying. Yeah. Because then we leave that child to the faith and goodwill of the people within the setup.
Yeah.
Then it's me and what I choose to do with what this tradition is, so that if it's a good wulome, he will not violate the child. But if it's a bad wulome who might misinterpret and think that he's allowed to marry her, then he can. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. That for me is problematic. That's even if we are counting, what's the word? Allowing for all of this to go, which we have brilliantly said we will not, because it is against the letter and the spirit of the Ghanaian constitution. Na Chocho Soya the first, who herself is a queen mother within the Gad traditional setup, has this to say. She says, over the last couple of days, I have engaged in the public debate and answered many questions regarding the furor surrounding the marriage of the of the 63-year-old Numo Gbowu, help me with pronouncing, to a 12-year-old child. I wish to state without reservation that, symbolic or not, I do not support, endorse or condone child marriage in the name of preserving our customs. As a queen mother, leader, as a queen mother, leader, and human rights advocate, protecting children is one of the fundamental requirements of my role, and one I take seriously. I am a fierce defender of our traditions. However, the argument that a custodian of culture must necessarily defend every aspect of that culture, no matter how harmful, is flawed. The other argument that this marriage is only symbolic because it will not be immediately consummated is equally flawed. Both arguments fail to take the well-being of the child in this marriage into consideration. Where possible, it is important that we reform some of our customary practices to align with modern positive values. Ghana's 1992 Constitution and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, Universal Declaration on Human Rights, among others. It is possible to reform without losing the essence and meaningfulness of our rights. As the world observes with keen interest, we must demonstrate courage and true leadership. Our conscience must move us to speak out. I am aware that government agencies are working with the relevant traditional authorities and Ghana leadership to address this matter, and I intend to lend my support in any way to ensure the best possible outcome. Omanye, this is our show. Lovely evening. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Truly African.